Welcome to Let's Learn 2-Point Hospital. All right, hi, this is Attican, and welcome to another 2-Point Hospital video. In our first video really, we did lower bullocks and took it up to 1 star. We'd already done Hogsport in our career as the tutorial. I didn't make a video on that one. And now we're going to do our third hospital in our little empire, which is Flottering. And Flottering introduces us to a very important concept, training. So in order to get a training license, we have to get this hospital up to a level 4. We have to hire 7 staff, and we have to have a staff morale of 55%. And the first 2 are pretty obviously simple. Building up the hospital level to 4 is just simply build some buildings, build some rooms. Put some rooms in our buildings. And I'm going to try my best to keep buildings and rooms straight. I know I messed it up several times on the first video. So, this is going to be similar in terms of our philosophy. Our philosophy, or our method we want to use is to try to match up GPs to diagnostics rooms and a 1-to-1 ratio. And what I'm doing here is measuring to see if we can use that center aisle approach where we put the GP office in the center. And the problem is that if we do that, we can't actually build on both sides of it. That's not a wide enough passageway there. It's wide enough up there if we wanted to push our GPs up there, and we could do that. We could move our GPs up there to the top. But what I've decided to do is here's an opportunity to just show another method for having short distances to walk, which is essentially we're going to build in pairs and kind of alternate GP offices with diagnostics offices all around the hospital. So looking here to see, we've got 5 squares to deal with, which is a little awkward, except we'll just take advantage of it and put in our GP first. So this GP will get the brunt of the first check-ins into the reception. So we're going to want to have a really strong doctor here. If we get a strong enough doctor into that first one and keep that person trained up and leveled up on GP, goodness gracious, it just makes everything so much easier. So we're going to just quick word on room design. We're going to make it so that our patient comes in that door, takes the minimal number of steps to get to that seat, and our doctor, we're going to over time, as we unlock more items with Kudosh, we're going to set it up so that the things that the doctor would want between patients to look at are close to his or her seat, so that the doctor can get back in the seat quickly once a patient comes in, and we can efficiently move people through the system. That's it in a nutshell as far as room design. So we're going to use a little more Kudosh to unlock the drinking fountain, and we're going to put that in here so that there's no reason for our doctor to be thirsty. So there's one kind of problem down, if you will. They're not going to leave the room because they're too thirsty. Give them a flower. We'll come back to that room because I forgot. What we really want to do is build up to level 3. So we want all our rooms, all of our offices, all of the rooms that we build to be level 3. So now we're going to put in the pharmacy. And the pharmacy is the only building that I tend to put in this the only room, the only room that I would tend to put in this first building, because the first building to me is general diagnostics. That's what it's for. It's going to be GPs and diagnostics offices. It's the heart of our entire hospital, because this is where it all starts. So we're going to, but the pharmacy is the one, we get it early. It's kind of early to go running it off into a separate building. So the pharmacy is kind of the one exception. It is truly a treatment room. Now, the other rooms that go in here that are also treatment would be the ward and psychiatry, but remember that the ward and psychiatry are also diagnosis rooms, so they do double duty. Sometimes they're diagnosing patient, other patients they may be treating for a specific disease. So there, we bumped our pharmacy up to level 3, and then I realized, hey, I didn't do that for the GP, so I need to go back here and level the GP up. And that's why we've got the Golden Elixir of Room Ratings, the Gold Star Award. And it doesn't take much for us to get up to a level 3. So now we use that little space, that awkward space there, to put in a staff room. Staff rooms do not need to be large at all. 3 by 2 works beautifully. And as long as you pack them up with the right stuff. Now, we haven't used enough kudos to get all the right stuff to really do a number on this yet, but we'll do what we can with what we've got to work with. So what we're going to do is, you know, the plant and the water fountain, but then we're going to put in snacks and drinks. And so there's no reason for any member who's been taking a break in this staff room to leave and go back on shift hungry or thirsty. They should leave in good spirits, having been here in a nice level 3 break room, so they should be good. And by the way, it's obvious if you haven't figured that one out, that your staff morale is driven by, you know, kind of how happy they are with their pay, how happy they are with their environment. Are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Do they need to go to the toilet? Are they, you know, are their needs being met while they're in the hospital, both working and when they're taking breaks? Now, in this game, they don't ever go home, which is not too unlike real world, I don't think, especially the trainee doctors. They don't seem to ever go home. But they stay there. There's no night or day. There's no shifts or anything. They're just there. They're either on break or they're working. So I was trying to see if I could switch the bin and the flower, but it didn't work. For the plant, rather. And so now we've got our staff room up to a level 3. And while I'm just going through the rest of this build, let me just talk about another kind of concept. There's a bunch of ways that you can play this in terms of how you do. Oh, I take that back. Oh, good. That's what I was thinking originally. We decided to go ahead and make the staff room level 5. Because it's the one room they're all going to go to eventually. So you can influence your entire staff through that one room. So we're going to invest the money to bump it up to a 5. And right here, I run out of space. Normally, you don't need that many awards. You'll have other cool stuff to put in there, but we're not there yet. So what I'm doing here is selecting them, hitting the control key so that it's not using the grid, and that way I can line these up closer to one another and create enough space so I can put that one last award in there that I need to make that a level 5 room. There we go. So now we have a level 5 staff room. We'll have level 3 for our other rooms, and that way our staff should be very happy. And I think what I was saying was that the staff morale, it's a combination of all those factors: their hunger, thirst, job satisfaction. You know, do they even have a job? I mean, sometimes they'll be there and they don't have a room to work in, and that actually bums them out as well. They can lose morale from that. If you've kind of overhired, you can create staffing a morale problem as well. So now we're going to put in a small toilet here with just 2 stalls, because again, we've got that odd space, we might as well take advantage of it. So having done this, then we would need to look at, as the hospital grows, that 2 stalls will probably not be enough to satisfy this entire building. So we'd probably put in maybe another couple at the other end of the building to give us better coverage. And we're even going to put in awards here. We can go right ahead and put these awards in the bathroom, and knock it up so that it has a better level, and so that even at the time they spend in the toilet, they're happy with their surroundings. And that will impact our patients as well, which is a good thing. And by the way, all these other rooms we're building also impact the patients. So the patient comes into a very nice GP office, and they get a happiness bump by having been in those nice surroundings. And so the effect is not just on your staff; it's also on your patients. I'm using a lot of plants in these rooms because don't have a lot to work with because we don't have enough kudos to open up some of the nicer things to put in the rooms. The good thing is the plants make the room attractive and bring up its level, but the bad news is now it's a lot of work for the janitors to keep all those plants watered. So if you're going to go heavy on water, or excuse me, heavy on plants, that implies that you're going to maybe need an extra janitor to keep those plants watered, because if they're not watered and they're dying off, then they were worthless. So it did you no good to have them at all. I think after all that, I spun that around and got it backwards. I think I fix it, but again, here we are. We've got this makes two diagnostics rooms that we have. We have the general and the cardiology. So now here comes our second GP to match up with it. And you might be saying, well, you're crazy. You don't need that many GP offices. It's just a waste. Well, think of it like this. If your first patient in your hospital comes in and your GP, he has something simple, and your GP diagnoses him and he goes off to pharmacy, he made exactly one visit to the GP and he's out the door and everything's great. Second guy comes in, a little more complex illness. GP can't diagnose it in one visit. They have to go out and get diagnostics. He has to come back. Well, that's like doubling your number of patients, because that patient has to go to a GP twice. If he in turn has to go for a third set of diagnostics, and remember, after they go to diagnostics, they always come back to a GP for final resolution to a treatment, then now that one patient is in effect 3 patients. So as these illnesses get more complex, you have to have more GPs. You have to be able to match up with your diagnostics, or you're going to have long queues and scratch your head wondering, why in the world do I need so many? Why am I getting all these queues at my GPs? It's because you're asking them to do double, triple, and quadruple work, because every diagnostics room is sending the patients back to a GP every time. So at this point, we have general diagnostics, cardiology. Now we're going to put in the ward, which will be our third diagnostic room. And what else do we have here? And then we'll put in the psychiatrist, which actually will be our fourth. So eventually in this building right here, which is our general diagnostics building, we would probably want to have 4 GP offices and that are staffed adequately to be running all the time. But as we start out, we won't need that many because we just won't have that big a flow of traffic as our hospital is being established. So here we're setting up our little power ward here. I'm having a brain cramp. Pinstar. Sorry, Pinstar, wherever you are. Our little Pinstar power ward with my little modification. The only modification is I'm just making it a little bigger to match the size, the shape there, because, you know, to square it off. Plus, eventually you'll see what we end up doing with that extra space. That extra space, I tend to put that on all the wards when I use this model, just to give it that extra room for some nice stuff we can add later on that we open up with our kudosh. So now we can do our psychiatry, and that will give us all the possible diagnostics that we have at this point in the game, right here in our general diagnostics building. To me, that's the way you want to do it. You want to have all of them available as soon as you can, so that you can unlock all the different illnesses that are potentials for the hospital room. And keep in mind too that every hospital doesn't present every illness. They kind of gather up and are added in as you go along. You accumulate more and more potential illnesses. The illnesses also get more and more complex and require greater and greater diagnostics. But at the same time, what you really want to do is at any point in time in the game, when you open a new hospital, I believe you want to have all the diagnostics available to you that hospital can have at that point in time, because that way you can find all the illnesses that are potentially going to come to you, and the more complex the illness, the more money you make. Just that simple. So plus, a lot of times your targets for hitting a star rating on a hospital are related to that. Now look at this. We're looking at the staff now. Some people would shy away from that money, but my goodness, look at that. We plopped down a level 3 GP in that first office right there. She will be able to bypass the rest of our diagnostics on many of our patients and just make the entire hospital work. That one great doctor can make the entire hospital work better. I'm going to do the same thing and get people for the ward, get people for our pharmacy and for our diagnostics. And once we get our staffing up, we need to hire 7 staff. So once we get that done, we'll be in great shape. Then all we'll need to do is run it a little bit to hit our 55% staff morale. And remember, we're plopping all these people into these nice level 3 offices. Now we want to make sure that GP, with the 3 GP, is only GP. I mean, goodness, don't waste that person's talent doing a treatment or something else. Have them in the GP office all the time. So we've got 1 specialist here for the nurses. We've got 1 specialist for pharmacy, a specialist for the ward, and then kind of swing people. Then we can get ourselves a good assistant. And the janitor, this is a tough call, but I wanted to do upgrades, so I grabbed the upgrade. It was a tough call not to get that incredible repairs plus the ghost capture, but I wanted to be able to upgrade wherever possible. So we'll set up that. Remember, we haven't even started the game yet. We haven't, we really haven't started. There we go. We're finally hitting the start. And you'll notice we immediately got our staff morale. Immediately, boom. There we go. Staff morale is good. And this is giving us a heads up that we are going to get clowns, which is, I believe they call it jest infestation. And these poor people think they are clowns. So we know we're going to get into treatments here pretty early. It's a pretty good hint that morning we got. So,
you know, I've been humming that tune to myself all week, which is uncanny because I've never heard it before. Or have I? Oh well, more catchy music coming right up.
All right, so we'll go ahead and kind of early buy a building. Now the reason is that we know we're going to be doing treatments soon, and remember, our philosophy is to have this room dedicated to, this building dedicated to diagnostics, and then our treatments off in the distance, so to speak, in a different room. That helps us with staff management, that helps us with flow of traffic, it helps us with lots of things. And I think looking at this right now, the one thing I might consider, my basic rule is to make the rooms as small as they can be, because that space is precious. However, looking at the way it turned out, we could have very easily made all those rooms, instead of 3 by 3, they could have been 4 by 3, and it would have bumped us in and made that hallway more narrow, but it would have made actually the prestige of the rooms even bigger, easier. So that might have been a good thing to do. But it looks pretty nice the way it is, that nice wide hallway. So now we see we want that clown thing, but we don't have it yet. Then we realize, wait a minute, we've got to train a staff member. So remember, we just got our training license. So now we want to add a training room into our hospital. And I'm contemplating putting it over here in the new building. But I kind of want to keep it over here because I'm going to be training mostly people that are over here, and I don't want any distance of walks, although it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen the other. If I put it up there, it would have been just fine. If I put it in the other building, it would have been just fine. So again, I'm kind of in this level 3 modes, and I'm trying to see if there's anything else there are some nice perks. See that anatomy poster? That's a beauty. You can get that and put that around on all the walls and get 1% increase in training speed for each poster. That's a beauty. And then the bookcases, the encyclopedia bookcases are awesome. But a couple of awards will get the job done for now. So our training, what I decided to do is take our super doctor and make her even better. So make her a 4, but a little tight on cash for that. And we could go out and get a loan and do that, but there's other things, other training that we could do. Now, our super doctor has an open slot. We could do treatment with her, but that would be a bad mistake because that would take up her last spot instead of allowing her to get that level 4 GP. So instead, we're going to take advantage of her and use her as the trainer to train our staff. That way we don't have any additional training costs for bringing in an outsider to do the training.
Nurse to the pharmacy.
So there's a good one for us to have now, is sort of a rotate between psychiatry and GP. Remember, we don't really want them to rotate ideally. We want them to be dedicated to psychiatry or dedicated to GP, But early on, you kind of have to do what you have to do. Now you notice there we're getting a queue at the pharmacy because that upgrade is taking a long time. The upgrades can really take, it just seems like forever. But that janitor will just keep banging on that thing, and there we go. Now we've got drug mixer 2, which will be I think it's a 25% increase in its effectiveness, which is great. Now, the other thing about that, using one of our staff to do the training and having a couple people in training, now basically now we have 3 people. We only have 2 people being trained, but we have 3 people off the floor. So that creates some holes in your staffing. You notice our ward right now has no nurses in it. That's no good. But one of our nurses has finished her training, and everybody doesn't finish at the same time. In fact, we're going to get into that big time. I tend to really make use of certain type of training. We'll get into that later, but everyone learns at a different rate of speed, or a lot of the people do. So there, our class is over. Now we're getting everybody back out on the floor. And we have another new illness, this where we need the pan slab. So some dude has managed to get a pan stuck to his head. Or her head. So now it's time. Now we're finally going to say, okay, fine. We need to build 2 buildings. We're going to make immediate income from them by giving treatments. So let's go ahead and take a loan, and we will build our clown control, whatever they call this thing. Our dehumorifier. Okay. So we set it up so that the patient has the shortest possible walk to go right into the dehumorifier, and then we'll set up our fountain near where the staff is going to do their thing, and we'll give it a couple plants. And again, we're sticking with that kind of level 3. We're just kind of, we started that way, so we're just kind of sticking with the make all the rooms level 3. And honestly, I've never played like this before. I've either done all or nothing. I've either done, you don't do any upgrades to the room and you just bang them out bare bones, or you make them level 5s. Seems like I'm never in the middle. So here's one where I'm actually in the middle. So we've got our clown treatment set up, and now we can go ahead and set up our pan treatment to get the pan off that person's head. And that'll allow us to do a couple of the treatments. And as I mentioned in the first video, these 2 buildings now are, in my mind, 2 totally different things. The first building, our main building, is diagnostics, and this building will be treatment. So the people that we want to eventually staff over here are going to be treatment specialists, and we're going to train them to be better and better and better at treatment. And the people over in the main building are going to get trained to be better and better at either GP or psychiatry or diagnostics, or something that helps them to do a better job with the diagnostics. And so we need a doctor to go over there into that pan lab. And one of the things you can do when you build these new buildings, that's a good cue. So we're going to see if we can train this guy up in treatment. And to save a few bucks, we'll use one of our staff to do it. So it'll be pretty inexpensive training for us. So we're looking pretty good, actually. That's a pretty nice looking little general diagnostics building. We've got the beginnings of a nice treatment center. Uh-oh, we lost our pan in the head guy.
Qualified janitor to combat ghost, please.
So one of the things, remember early on we decided on that janitor who could do upgrades, but we don't have a janitor who can hunt down our ghosts for us, so we're going to have to deal with that eventually.
In the news today, conditions at the Rotting Hill Hospital are getting worse every day. Apparently, patients are just as likely to die from sinkholes and crumbling ceilings as any diseases. At least that'll keep the queues down.
Maintenance announcement. Plants need water.
Now you may have noticed I've turned the sound off. The soundtrack to this game is not bad at all. In fact, I found myself humming it a few times. But I also found myself getting sick of it, so I've turned it off. Also, I don't want to compete with it for doing these voiceovers. But I love the radio DJs and the announcers and all that, and the PA announcer, the smart aleck comments they make. I think they're really good. Very clever. So now we're down to just to get a 1-star here in Flottering. All we need is a little more training, a few more promotions, and the training and promotions go hand in hand, because when you train someone, that really sets them up to be promoted. And now we've got enough cash to go ahead and make our super doctor with the level 4 GP rating. And a little hospital like this, a level 4 GP, just wow, outstanding.
Announcement. Try not to die. Health inspector now arriving at the hospital. Doctor required in psychiatry.
Now you probably noticed there's a queue, a small queue up near the psychiatrist's office, and there I finally punched in and raised the prices. Should have done that before I ever hit the go button. Right after hiring a staff, we should have had the prices raised first thing. But anyway, there's a queue up there for psychiatry because we accepted one of those deals like an emergency where they send you a bunch of a certain type of patient. They kind of flood you with a certain type of patient, and then you have to see how many of those you can heal. And if you heal half or more of them, you get bonus, and so your reputation goes up and all that. And if you fail to do that, you lose a little bit. My attitude is always take them, assuming you have any capability at all to treat them, because they're money. Because even if you miss the challenge, they're still there. You can still treat them. You still charge them for the treatments. So take them and run with them.
What a smashing day for a bit of gardening. I mean, who doesn't like gardening? Digging up a bit of soil, sticking your hands in a bit of manure. Oh, I can almost smell it now. No, wait, the sewage pipes burst again. No, my mistake. Anyway, keep those fingers green.
So I'm looking over the staff rota there to see what kind of coverage we have, and decided that one doctor that has a lot of skills can do GP and psychiatry is probably a good choice early on. You really want to specialize as you go along and try to get those, GPs with high GP training and psychiatrists with high psychiatrist training and treatment doctors with high treatment, etc. But in the early going, particularly with a startup hospital like this, sometimes those guys who can do 2 or 3 things decently well, if they have a 1 in 2 or 3 things, can be very useful. And the same thing there with the nurse. I decided to take a nurse that had a kind of broad range of abilities or training, so that the nurse could cover multiple stations in a rotation, and don't have to get too specific with the schedule just yet, because we just don't have enough mass to really have a truly strict rota at this point. And we're kind of keeping with that philosophy of getting people up to that superstar status, so we're going up for ward management level 2 here. We've got enough money to bring in an outsider to do the training for us. And you can see money's not a problem. We're doing just fine, even though I forgot for the longest time there to raise the prices. We're making plenty of money with this little tiny hospital we get, and we've got plenty enough money we could build it even more. But there's no point in building it until we know what we're building toward. And there we go. We got our 1-star. We've opened up a couple of more hospitals. Mitten University, which will be great. We'll spend a lot of time there. Tumble. We've got reception as a building now, or a room that we can build.
And so another day begins in 2 Point County, where students at the Mitten School of Medicine may soon be able to practice on actual living people. Any budding doctors should remember that gluing heads back on to accidentally decapitated patients is all very well with dummies, but there are no do-overs in real life. It's easy to get lost around Tumble, and it's even easier to fall down. That's why authorities recommend only seasoned climbers and hikers visit this beautiful region of 2 Point County. Or at least people with good health coverage. The rest of us will have to make do with a postcard.
Alright, so you can see we got 2 more hospitals opened up, and we will go attack one of those in our next episode. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player, and I hope you'll join us for our next 2 Point Hospital video. Thank you.